ARTalk one-on-one with Mr. Burgher.
So I'm inspired by this beautiful drink you have concocted here.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about this.
Well, and before we jump into what this is, we have to acknowledge the fact that this is our first segment of the evening in honor of Women's History Month, Women's Appreciation, and all of the rest. We are going to start with drinks with the masters, and this master is Yoko Ono, the conceptual artist, the artist that is known for her performances and all of the rest, marriage to the great Beatle, John Lennon, and I'm sure she's known for other things. But in this case, we're focusing on her artwork and this very grapefruit-infused work of culinary masterpiece brought to us by our friends at Art Boozle and Jennifer Kroll, the author of the book, another great female artist in her own right, as a writer and literary person. Go out to wherever you find books, good bookstores or online, anywhere. You'll be able to find Art Boozle, and you'll be able to find the recipe for this and many other recipes of other artists, both historically and contemporary artists, and this great, like I said,
the grapefruit. And do you know what this is inspired by?
I don't.
She wrote a book, I think, from my research, she wrote a book called The Grapefruit about her artwork. Oh. And so that's why they chose a grapefruit drink.
Well, and the thing is, when it comes to Yoko Ono, I know very little. I've seen some of her performances, I've seen some of her other things, and know a little bit of her background, but I would not say that I'm an expert in the way of Yoko Ono, so that fills in the blank. I had no idea why there was so much. Yeah, this is an interesting one. So
let's have a drink. Cheers. And then when you're done having a drink, you can explain to me what conceptual art is. Briefly.
Well, conceptual art is basically where the idea is more important. We've talked about process art, where the process, the act of making, is the most important. We've looked at other forms of art where the product, the sculpture, the painting, the photograph, whatever it might be, that item is the most important thing. With conceptual art, the idea is the most valuable part. And today, one of the ideas that I have is to start Art One-on-One in great style. I am Mr. Burgher, your favorite art teacher, America. But with me is the pod boss, the one, the only, Nicole Jordan.
That's right, honoring me today.
So, this is the first of 7 different segments that we're going to try to charge through today. We're going to hit all 7 segments, all 7 focusing on female artists and artistry. And so, let's keep it going. What's the next one on the docket, Pod Boss?
I'm going to start with Brushstrokes and Bluffs.
Brushstrokes and Bluffs
I'm going to
is
test
where
your knowledge
you
again.
test me to see if I know anything about art. And I might not. I'm about 50-50 so far. We'll see how much I don't know today.
All right. So here is what you need to determine whether it is a myth or a truth, a brushstroke or a bluff. Georgia O'Keeffe's Black Iris III was painted as an overtly sexual representation of female anatomy, with the petals symbolizing parts of the female's body.
That's definitely a myth, and I've definitely heard that one. Do you have a picture of the painting in question?
Oh, I do not. I just figured you would know it.
Georgia O'Keeffe painted hundreds of paintings. I don't know.
Well, you said it's definitely a myth.
I've definitely heard it as a myth. I would have to see it to know if I feel like it's actually true in what you're saying. But I know that's definitely something that's out there.
All right, so here it is.
Oh, okay.
Siri here. Let me know if I can help.
Nope. No, thank you. Now the question is it a truth or is it a myth that it was based on female
Yes, I'll read it again.
genitalia?
Georgia O'Keeffe's Black Iris III was painted as an overtly sexual representation of female anatomy, with the petals symbolizing parts of the female body.
I'm going to say that was true. Georgia O'Keeffe had there were lots of rumors and innuendo and legendary LGBTQ things in the background of Georgia O'Keeffe. One of those, interestingly enough, is a love affair with an artist that I know we're talking about today, Frida Kahlo. And so I'm going to say that's true. I'm going to say that's a brushstroke.
Well, GPT is going to say, you are wrong.
Is that right?
That's right. It says, while many viewers interpreted O'Keeffe's Black Iris III in a sexualized way, the artist herself always denied this. O'Keeffe often said that her flowers, including this one, were simply a reflection of nature's beauty and form.
And I think that
was your gut. That was your first reaction. Why did you change it?
I don't know.
Because initially you said absolutely not. That's not true.
I didn't say that it was absolutely untrue. I said that it's a myth. It was definitely something that was out there. Now, whether or not it was accurate or not, I could not have said, but I don't know.
I'll have to try to pull that up and listen to Georgia O'Keeffe herself, but that's what it says.
But there again, you also have to take into account the fact that Georgia O'Keeffe, having various things in her background that she did not want to be in the public, that she stayed out of the public.
You're saying she denied it because she didn't want that.
Correct. And I think
that makes sense.
Even if it were true, hypothetically, she probably would have denied that was true. But because of the time in the place in history where those accusations and things were made, would have been during her lifetime, if she was bringing it up.
So you think it's truth, and she just wanted to keep it in the
That's me. But what do I know? I color for a living. I could be wrong. So.
Well, it's
up to everybody's interpretation.
Yeah. If you have comments or think something's different, let us know.
For sure. If you think that it's truth or whatever, leave it down in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, moving right on. We're going to swap roles here.
Oh.
Yes.
And the roles are?
Well, we're going to do art of interpretation. So I'm going to look at a painting that you wanted me to depict and let you know what I think about it.
And we're looking at Frida Kahlo.
Yes.
The alleged
mistress,
of Georgia O'Keeffe. And in this one, I decided that I wanted you to take a look at Self-Portrait with Cropped Hair, a great painting done by Frida Kahlo.
I didn't research anything on it, although I did look up what this says on there.
You bastard.
Well, I mean, I don't know what this says, and I mean, most people would. So I did look up what that said, so that gave me some insight into the piece of art.
Okay.
But I'll tell you what came up. So I first just looked at it before I, looked up the words. But what I thought it meant was just she was just showing the side of her. She seems to be a very confident woman. I mean, she has to be if she's going to cut off her hair and look. I mean, she's obviously not very appealing when she cuts off her hair. And so this to me is making a statement about who she is, and she doesn't give a shit about what other people think. She is who she is. Beauty is on the inside, not the outside. That's what I would have said the piece was about before looking at what the music verbiage of Up Above was. So then after that, after feeling that way about the painting, I did look up what that said, and it said something about, I loved you for your long hair, and now I don't, something like that. So I think that my interpretation was obviously right, because for me it was just about her making a statement like, I don't give a shit what everybody else thinks. I can look like this and be comfortable in my own skin, and here's me showing that. One of the different, I think she had many different, she had many sides of herself. There's so many sides to Frida Kahlo, and this is just one of them, and she was not uncomfortable showing that. Although, was she afraid to talk about her relationship with Georgia O'Keeffe as well?
Yes. That was not something that was brought up. Although there are, I've read various books that have mentioned their very fast-moving fling that was mostly off again, then on again, but many people claim that it did occur when Georgia O'Keeffe and Frida Kahlo met when she was in New York.
So how did I do on my interpretation?
Your interpretation's not wrong. It's very much, according to the people that do the analysis of what these sorts of things mean, when you look specifically at the words at the top, it says in Spanish, again in translation from Spanish, it says, "Look, if I loved you, it was for your hair. Now you are hairless, and I don't love you anymore."
Yeah.
And one of the things that is about the painting, one of the deeper nuggets, is that her husband, a famed Mexican muralist, probably the most brilliant muralist of North America, was Diego Rivera. And at that time, he was the most sought-after muralist anywhere. And he was commissioned to come to Detroit. He was commissioned to go to New York, so on and so forth. San Francisco, to do murals and paintings and artworks for the public, or for private people that wanted to have his artwork on display. And while that was very much true, he very much loved her long hair. And they had recently got divorced, and so she was kind of like, you can notice that the suit jacket, it's very big and bulky, giving the impression, Frida Kahlo was a very small woman, and Diego Rivera was a very large man, and so the idea was that she put on his coat and his pants, and she had this... Oh, it was his? Yes. Oh, and so she had this, supposedly, and I don't know if it actually was or not, but you can tell that it's bulky and baggy, and she had a history of androgyny. She had a history of wearing men's suits. In photographs, her father was a very good German photographer that immigrated to Mexico, where he met his wife, Frida's mother, and Frida Kahlo was half German and half Jewish. And so with those things taken into account, he would take photographs of his daughters and things like that, and he had all daughters. And so Frida, being the youngest, was the tomboy. She had polio disease. He taught her how to box. He taught her how to fight. He taught her how to be kind of a tough little boy when she was a little girl, and she loved it. She loved being the tomboy and
masculinity.
Right, and you see that in the way she paints herself over and over again. She paints herself with the hairs on her face, with pronouncing the mustache whiskers on her face, putting her eyebrow together as a unibrow, doing those, painting her, even in this painting, painting her jawline in such a way so she looks a little bit more masculine than she might.
She does kind of have a masculine, she's pretty sometimes when you look at her, but she's also very masculine when you look at her.
And I think she intentionally does that in the photo, or in the I think she intentionally does that in the paintings. She does come across that way a little bit in some of the photos. But she also, like, there's a photo spread that was famous on the cover of Vogue and Vogue magazine. And she's absolutely beautiful. There's photographs of her that are great. And, it's like when Selma Hayek is the actress that portrays your life. And Selma Hayek is...
Yes.
She's a smoke show. And honestly, it's not like it's way off, So, and that's just my take on it. But
were there many portraits of her and her husband?
Yes.
There were? Okay.
There were paintings, there were photographs, there were videos, there's all kinds of things that have Frida and Diego together. And again, this is during a time when they were newly divorced. They were only divorced for 2 years and they got married again.
Okay, that's what I was just going to say. Weren't they did they eventually get back together or became close again?
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
Interesting. Well, I very much appreciate the different sides of Frida, and I think she is very similar to the Art Vault topic or Art Vault artists that we're going to go into in our next segment, Marina Abramovic.
Yeah, and I think that this documentary from the Art Vault is absolutely fantastic.
I agree.
The portrayal, the behind the scenes of what the conceptual artist, what the performance artist does, what it means. It kind of lays it out for the public to kind of get an idea of what it is, why it is,
who she really was.
Right.
Because she really talks a lot. She's the main person that speaks throughout the documentary. She's telling about the different pieces of art. There are people that are interviewed, but she's really the main one interviewed and talking through just even how hard it was for her to become not seen as a crazy person, but this great artist who, it took a really long time for people to believe that or think that about her, that she wasn't crazy, but she was just really good at what she did and really passionate about performance art, which she does take it to the extreme.
Yeah, well, and I think that with most people that are doing something different, like when you think of an artist, you think of somebody painting, you think of somebody sculpting, you think of somebody taking a photograph or making something digital or whatever it is that you think art should be. And when somebody is doing something that's almost the opposite of that, there's not really a product, there's just kind of a
performance.
Right. And so it's
I
interesting.
struggle with that too. But the thing I love the most, or the exhibit, I don't know if exhibit is the right word, but the exhibit I love the most is where she sits across from the table and just different people come in and she sits and she stares into their eyes and there's just so many different emotional reactions that people have just from her looking at them, and kind of seeing them, which have you ever done that where you just stared at, I have during certain spiritual events, you have to go across from someone you absolutely do not know and just stare into their eyes for 30 seconds. Have you ever done that?
I think that and I don't want to be insensitive, but I think that, and I say this with all sincerity, it is hard for me to make eye contact with people. I'm pretty sure that that's one of the 7 factors of being on the autistic spectrum. I don't really know, but it's hard for me to look somebody in the face. As we do this, I don't look at you in the face. When I talk to my boss or when I talk to my coworkers, when I talk to students, I don't really look at them in the face. I think to me it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like just looking at somebody in the face. It distracts me from my thoughts, and I don't like it. I don't like looking at somebody in the face. So no,
you haven't done that.
So no, I've not done that.
I have done that, and it is very uncomfortable. And so for her to do that for how many hours straight was it?
Oh, it's days.
People were just dying. You watch the film or the documentary, and people are just dying to get in there first so they can sit across from her.
Right.
It's the coolest thing. And then you have people crying, you have people laughing, you have people just staring, and I would love to see like the written responses from each person that sat there across from her and how they felt and like and how that moment impacted them or whatever. Did anybody do that after the?
Yeah, I couldn't
that
tell
exhibit?
you. I don't know. That would have been interesting.
It would have been interesting.
Had that footage existed, but
that's just one of the many things that she did. I mean, she inflicted pain on herself and severe pain on herself. Like,
well, and where did we watch that? Where was that at? Where was it streaming?
I watched it on Max.
Okay. So anyway, the documentary is out there. Highly recommend it. It's a really good one, especially if you're like wanting to know a little bit more, a little bit deeper into the mind of an artist that does performance, conceptual types of things.
Yeah.
It's a really good one.
It dives deep into performance art and kind of the world behind that, but it also dives deep into her personality, and it is just so interesting. It's probably I think it's my favorite one so far. Interestingly enough, the artists that you chose for Women's History Month, like these are most of my favorite artists. Like moving into Through the Art Lens, you are choosing or wanted to choose to focus on Julia Cameron.
Well, it's not that I wanted to focus on Julia Cameron. It was just that her birthday falls on March the 4th, and with this week being, the beginning of March the 4th, it seems fitting to have a female author who has written a book specifically about art, even though I have my own opinions of her and her writing and the book The Artist's Way. We will get.
You have only read the first chapter.
That is untrue. I'm on chapter 5, number 1.
And you still don't like her as much as
no,
you didn't in the first
and
chapter.
Again, there's going to be another time where we're going to revisit The Artist's Way, where we're going to have more time to invest in The Artist's Way, where you and I can debate this a little bit more fully.
But because of her birth date, you chose her today.
But because of her birth date, the acknowledgement of her work seems very well placed at this particular time in the artist's lens, or through the artist's lens, or what have you.
Yes, and interestingly enough, she is one of my favorite. Like, this is probably one of my top 5 favorite books. I don't know, she really didn't do, she's just really a writer, though, correct? I mean, I think maybe she does a little bit of art on the side.
I think she does more like directing, like movies or things like that.
Filmmaking, directing.
More on that, in that realm of artistry as opposed to painting, sculpting, that sort of thing.
Well, her most famous book, as we talked about, is called The Artist's Way, and it is not what I thought it was when I signed up. So I'm doing this book club with The Artist's Way, and it was not what I thought it was going to be about. I thought it was going to be about discovering like your creativity and like the artist within you and uncovering that. But it is very much not that. It looks as creativity a different way. Like when you open up your creativity and find your creativity, you're essentially finding your authentic self and creating that person through this process of events. Like each chapter is like uncovering the artist within you, which is really uncovering the authentic self and what you really, truly are put on this earth to do and love and become.
If you say so. Again, we will debate this another
I want to do it now.
We just don't. We got 7 segments. We don't have time to put the whole thing on the down the tube because of this particular book.
You're killing me. All right, fine. We'll move on to the next segment. Segment number 6. We are
almost there.
We are.
Wonderful. We're going to be on. We're right on track.
Wonderful.
I think.
I'm all about following the rules.
You sure are.
No. Art Lost and Found is number 6.
Art Lost and Found. This is the segment where we uncover an artist that should be more recognized. They should be more mainstream. They should be more appreciated by the general public, more acknowledged
Yes.
By the general public than they are. And today we are going to look at the sculptor Camille Claudel, who was the mistress to another famous artist. And I have a video on this. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah, sure.
Called Claudel and Rodin, or Claudel plus Rodin. And you can go back and revisit that if you want. All of those things are available in the so-called archives of the work. Remember we used to do...
Journey into the Archives.
Journey into the Archives.
I kind of miss Journey into the Archives, but we do kind of bring it into the mix because you're always referencing videos that you've used in the past. And all right, so why did you choose? It's Camilla, right?
I believe so.
Why did you choose Camilla? Why do you think she needs more recognition?
I think she's an artist who was very, very good. She was very appreciated. People at that time when she was working very much recognized her work. They appreciated her work. She was an even sculptor with Rodin, the master of Impressionist sculptors. And for whatever reason... Because
she was a female?
Part of it was because she was a female. Part of it was because there's a perception of an imbalance of power that took place in her life. Now, I don't know if it's true or not. And I don't know that I want to go down that rabbit hole of discussing whether it's true or not. But she believed, we'll just leave it there, she believed that Rodin sabotaged her artwork. She believed that Rodin was stealing her ideas. She believed that Rodin had her placed into a mental institution. And she believed that Rodin wanted to destroy her career because he was jealous. He was jealous. He wanted to suppress her and her ideas. She was in a mental institution toward the end of her life. She spent the last several years becoming more and more and more obscure as she was living in a mental hospital.
Is this what your video was about in regards to those two, or was it something different?
It was in regard... Well, yes, it was in regard to that. Rodin had another woman that he was also involved with at the same time. Rodin was a kind of man that was very non-committal. He kind of had his... He had his... affairs,
mistresses,
very much divided, and he was with one woman sometimes or with another woman other times, and he was very much that's just kind of how he rolled.
It's kind of how a lot of artists roll.
I think that
is such a true thing. When you're talking about artists all the time, this comes up. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna chat GPT it later, and I bet it says that.
Number one, you cannot trust 100% of what AI says, because I have had to correct AI.
No.
Number two, I think it's all, and I'm not attempting to mansplain here, but I know that it's coming across that way, and I apologize in advance for the way that it's coming across. But the fact of the matter is that was the time in history where, for example, women were put into mental hospitals because they were dealing with postpartum depression.
Okay.
And any sort of conflict in a woman's life that gave her any sort of emotional reaction to something, the man, her husband, had 100% power to put her in a facility, right? So that doesn't happen in the world today because men don't wield that sort of power in relationships, nor should they. And I think that our society, thankfully, has evolved from the day of one person in a relationship having complete power over the other person in the relationship. And
that and what the definition of crazy is. I mean...
Well, and there were lots of
honestly,
things that people didn't understand. There were people in mental hospitals that were suffering from all kinds of things. People with dementia and Alzheimer's. Well, people didn't know what dementia and Alzheimer's were. They just said, oh, you're old, you're crazy. Put them in a mental home. They just had a baby. They're doing some weird things. Put them in a mental home. That person just ate a bunch of lead paint. Oh, what? Okay. They're acting crazy. They're having seizures. Well, we don't know what that means. We don't know why they would be flopping around on the ground. Put them in a mental home.
Thankfully,
those things actually happened. And I think that, thankfully, science has allowed us to understand why people react to certain chemicals, why people react to certain things, why people's brain chemistry is affected by things, whether that's having a baby or dealing with loss or dealing with
perimenopause
or a million things. Geriatric situations,
Yeah.
There's all kinds of things.
What are you looking at me when you're saying geriatric?
Because you're 78 years.
Oh my gosh! I did just have a birthday.
Well,
not really, but
you didn't have a birthday. You're still 12.
Yep, exactly.
So.
But I am not.
You got a couple years.
I am not geriatric, but I am going through menopause, and that for sure feels like there's a lot. Yes, you can probably vouch for that.
A little bit.
All right. Well, okay. Let's move away from craziness for a little bit here. We have one more segment to do, and I think we should end on a good note for the women and women's
something positive
history.
For the women. Let's do it.
I don't know this particular artist in general, but hopefully we can have a good spin or a positive end with the art talk that we're going to move into. Although she was never a wife or mother herself, painter Mary Cassatt's favorite theme was motherhood. Her friend Edgar Degas felt sure this would make her famous, since few other artists had portrayed maternal subjects, except in religious pairings. If you could explore only one subject in your artwork, what would that subject be and why? And just to preface this, I'm not sure why we are still doing these art talks, because hopefully you prove me wrong here, but you seem to not be able to come up with a specific answer or one thing when I ask you.
It's very difficult.
Are you going to be able to do that on this
Possibly.
one? I'll read it again.
No, I don't want you to read it again. I just want to correct this card, because there are some things in this card that are just factually incorrect. Number one, she was friends with Edgar Degas. However, they stopped being friends because Edgar Degas is a bigot, misogynist. He believed that women should not be allowed to vote. He believed that women had a place, and it was in the kitchen. And Mary Cassatt she was fighting for women's rights to vote and all of those things in the United States. And Edgar Degas was like, you know what? You need to shut up about that whole women's voting thing.
Really?
And so they stopped being friends because of that. And he was one of the people that kind of took her under his wing when she was in Paris, got her involved with the Impressionist painters, and so they severed at the end of they severed ties completely. She couldn't stand him.
Really?
So for
Go Mary.
So for the card to say that they were friends
at one point.
At one point was true, but not always true. But I have to say also that I can't believe that you don't know who Mary Cassatt is, that you don't know that much about her, that you don't know who she is.
Why should I?
Mary Cassatt is one of the great Impressionist painters. I've talked about her in, I don't even know how many videos. I think there were probably 7 or 8 videos that I talk about her artwork in over the course of, just the time that we've been together. I've made tons of content with her in it. And for you to say you don't know who
I don't
Mary
know
Cassatt
her
is.
personality. I'm not saying I don't know that she's this impressionist painter or whatever, like,
Or whatever.
I wouldn't know her art if I saw it. What
You
I'm
wouldn't?
saying is, I probably wouldn't, but I don't know her personality. So I don't know if we can put a positive spin on this because I don't know what you're going to feel about Mary Cassatt and her art.
What a thing.
So if, I'll steer you back as I should, if you could explore only one subject in your artwork, Mr. Burgher, what would that subject be
Portraits.
and why?
Most of my artwork is portraits.
Subject, not...
Portraiture is a subject. Portraits is a subject.
Okay, but subject for her was like females.
Exactly. Her portraits were of females, of mothers and daughters. That's what she did. Those were her subjects. I would choose a very similar subject matter. People.
Okay, that is too broad. That is way too broad for the
It's just
question that it's asking.
it's identical to what she
we're going
did.
to have to finish art talk because you can never give an answer that is in alignment with the
Holy
question.
shitballs! I just gave the most direct answer that I've ever given.
So you do portraits. That's not a subject. It would be like
You are 100%
it would be like
wrong.
WWF wrestlers or
No.
hot women or something like that.
Number one, I would rather draw old people than young people.
Okay, that's the point
I
of
would
me.
not want to draw hot women.
I wasn't saying you're so funny.
I'm not being funny. I'm being honest. I would rather draw little old men than hot women. Number two.
Oh, at least we're getting somewhere now about what your portraits would be.
But that's my preference. That doesn't mean that I wouldn't or couldn't. I would focus on people. And people is a subject. Portraiture is 1,000% a subject or a major topic.
It's a topic, not a subject. So who would be the subjects of your portraits?
I don't know who the exact subjects would be.
Who would you choose? Who would seem the most interesting to you to draw?
I've done drawings of celebrities. I've done drawings of video game characters. I've done drawings of people that I know, my family members, my sons, my daughters, my significant others from time to time,
That's wonderful.
myself.
My significant others. Plural.
Well, I have had multiple significant others.
You have.
I'm sorry, I'm the only one on the planet that has had multiple significant others. My bad. But I have. That's on me. Apparently.
It is on you. There's nobody to blame but yourself.
You're right. It's all my fault, sister.
You chose the people that you were with, sweetie pie.
And they chose their path in the relationship as well.
Okay. All right, so back to your subject. So
Prick.
let's hone it in a little bit here. You would do portraits.
I would. I would
would it be
portraits, and that portraiture is a subject.
It's a topic.
It isn't.
Okay, well we're going to dive a little bit deeper. So it's okay. I'm going to honor your
I got better because you don't know what you're talking about.
But I'm going to make you like target it a little bit more. So of these portraits, would it be like you said, like pop art, like video game people, or not people, but video game characters, or I mean, you can never hone in on what really you.
I'm 100%. I don't know that I've been any more clear in any one of the things that you've ever done.
I'm going to need some backup from people here because it's just saying you would choose to do portraits is not what the question is asking you. It's asking you to be more specific.
No, it isn't.
And I'm going to refuse to do art talk anymore if you can't get more in depth than what you.
The exact wordage is, if you could explore only one subject, it would be humans.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's fine. If you want to keep it that uninteresting, we'll leave it at that.
Why? Because, again, I think that humans would allow me, number one, I'm fascinated by drawing people, by drawing faces, by the characters of people, and being able to put them in different sort of interesting situations. doing a drawing of my daughter in a eagle's nest. When she was a baby, she used to scream like an eagle, so I'd call her the Screaming Eagle. I'd take a portrait of my son Hank, a picture of my son Hank, and I would draw him sleeping in his high chair. I would do a picture of my daughter Brooklyn looking at me with disgust through a fork, or do a drawing of my son Brody where the skull and the football helmet and all of that is kind of being pulled through his face in this kind of interesting sort of dynamic, right? Putting people in the props around it, you know, the outfit, the setting, the bib overalls, the this, the that, the other thing. All of those things are secondary to the character. It makes the character, but it's secondary to the character. And you can tell all kinds of stories with people. And, you know, it's one of those things where I think that to me, art is a lot about telling stories, and people like stories about people. You could tell a story of the 3 little bears, or the 3 little pigs, or the 3 little mice, or the 3
blind mice,
whatever. But the 3 little old fellas sitting around playing cribbage, that to me is a fun story. That's the story I like to tell.
Okay. Well, that's a better answer than I thought I would get out of you, so.
Oh, and it was the worst answer that I'd ever given 5 minutes ago.
I just don't know about doing ARTalk anymore. That's all.
We've got 52 cards. I think we've got maybe 10 of them down. You've only got 42
yeah, we'll see if that
go.
segment hangs on.
Well,
we did get all...
I do like the ARTalk segment because it does make us think about things outside the box a little bit, although there are times that it's very, very challenging. And I will admit that I did not...
I never tell you the ARTalk cards, so you have to come up with these off the top of your head.
I did not prepare for this in advance. However, I felt like I was really good on that one. I was actually proud of myself.
As you eased into it, as you relaxed into it and actually thought about it, but you wanted to keep it so broad and say because humans. Okay.
That's a subject. That's no different than a landscape.
Humans that you feel have a good story or that you could tell their story. That would be more of your topic. And why? Because you think that's interesting to be able to tell these stories or interpret these situations or the what do I want to say, the atmosphere around them or the things they're wearing or whatever. You tell their stories by the art that you create. But man, it's hard to get shit out of you.
Yeah.
Do you want to sit here and look into my eyes for about 30 seconds?
I don't. I won't look at your face at all.
Well, good thing is we're wrapping it up, so we're about done and you don't have to look at my face anymore.
Wonderful.
All right, so thanks for watching today. We hope you enjoyed our 7-segment series and topic of Women's History Month. We hope that you dive into the archives, look at the videos that we reference, and hit like, share, and subscribe.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Goodbye.